Namaskar. Today we have with us a very special person in our studio, Mr. Ramendra Kumar, Chief of Communications, SAIL RSP, and an eminent writer. Ramendra Kumar is a children's writer with 33 books to his name. His writings have been translated into several Indian and foreign languages and have been included in anthologies and textbooks. 6 books authored by him have been recommended by CBSE India as supplementary readers. An inspirational speaker and a storyteller, he has been invited to participate in festivals like Jaipur Lit Fest, Bokaro, Anjali, etc., as well as seminars conducted by Sahitya Academy, IGNOU, and NBT. He is an engineer and an MBA, working as Chief of Communications, SAIL RSP. Welcome, sir, to our studio and giving us your precious time.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, and thanks for the lovely introduction.
Welcome. Thank you so much again, sir. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you, sir. You have added one more feather to your cap by representing India in the 36th IBBY held in Athens, where more than 70 countries participated. What was your experience?
It was fantastic. It was an awesome experience, and I went along with 3 other writers from EVIC, which is the Indian chapter of IBBY or IBBY. I was actually invited to chair one session and present a paper. So the session which I chaired on the first day,
Yes, sir.
I had gone very well prepared, and it had 3 writers from 3 different countries, or rather 3 different continents.
Yes, sir.
And they spoke very well. So because I had prepared, I could, kind of create that interest, I think, in the audience by interlinking the theme. And I also spoke about Indian culture, Indian mythology, and Indian literature. So I think the audience liked it quite a bit. The next day, just before my paper, when I was waiting for the session to begin, I was approached by one of the organizers who told me that I liked your session yesterday. Could you chair another session today?
My God.
Because the chairperson, the designated chairperson,
Yes, sir.
has not turned up.
Okay.
So I said, why not?
Okay.
My wife who was there, she
Okay.
told me in Telugu, are you insane?
Oh, God.
How can you do this?
Yes, sir.
You have no idea about the papers. You have no idea about the authors
Yes, sir.
who are going to, present their papers. And you're just going to go and chair a session. You think it's that easy?
Yes, sir.
So I said, come on. With confidence, I should be able to manage most
Yes, sir.
things and all.
Yes, sir.
So let me take a chance.
Yes, sir.
So I went and chaired that session. And I think what's very, very important here is your presence of mind.
Yes, sir.
And if you have a reasonable knowledge of literature
Yes, sir.
across the world,
Yes, sir.
reasonable knowledge,
Yes, sir.
you should be able to kind of create an impact.
Yes, sir.
And for me, I think, I don't know whether others would agree, one of my greatest strengths is a sense of humor,
Yes, sir.
and the art of repartee, if you can call it that. So I can give you an example. One of the ladies there who had presented a paper, she had talked about the character of the youngest child as portrayed in literature, particularly fairy tales.
Okay, sir.
She said the youngest child is usually faces a lot of trouble, a lot of adversity, and triumphs over these odds because the youngest child is more intelligent, better looking, and has more guts and gumption and courage. So after she sat down, I said, ma'am, your paper was excellent, and it reminded me of my own house in my home. I've got 3 children. The eldest is my daughter, and I have a son, and I have a Labrador who's my youngest child.
Yes, sir.
And my Labrador is far smarter, far more intelligent, fatter, and much more handsome than the other 2. So the audience simply exploded with laughter because they could never imagine that. I think they could never imagine that somebody sitting there as the chairperson in a conference like this would take the example of his pet Labrador to drive home a point. Then I went on and said that in my wife's family,
Yes,
it's
sir.
the same thing. She's the youngest, and she's far more beautiful and far more charismatic than her older brothers. So after the session was over, a lot of people came and told me that they liked this humor, and they liked the fact that I could connect the various, the aspects which had been presented to something which is very close to everybody's heart, their own family and all that.
Yes, sir. So,
Yeah.
so somehow your family reflects whatever you have written or whatever today you are. Your family reflects.
Yeah, absolutely. And it starts with my father. My father was a professor in Hindi department, and he was steeped in literature. I mean, he taught literature, and he wanted me to. Saw the spark in me, and he wanted me to write. So the first novel I wrote was at the age of 9, and it must have been the most terrible novel ever written by anybody in humanity. So I wrote it in a diary and all that. So my father had a Lambretta scooter. I don't think you people have even heard what a
Yes, sir.
Lambretta
Yes,
scooter
sir.
is.
Quite long back.
Yeah. So every month or two, it would have some trouble. So he would take it to a mechanic's place. So there, I would be sitting on a stool. He would be sitting in a chair opposite me, and in the background, the mechanic would be shouting and screaming. There would be complete chaos all around and all that. And in that chaos, I would read out from my so-called masterpiece to my father, and he would listen intently, answer my questions, and give me gentle suggestions. So his involvement in my writing, that kind of encouraged me to continue. And now, of course, he's no more. But every time I wrote a piece, he was the first person to see it and discuss with me and all that.
Very happy to know, sir, that your father was also a literate here.
Yeah, literature, and more important was that he knew how to encourage me, he knew how to inspire me, and he knew how to tell me that he's there with me every time, in every venture of mine.
So that's very nice of you. Can you please say us something about your theme?
Of the conference?
Yes, sir. The Brave New World of Indian
Yeah.
Children's Literature.
So, see, basically, what I wanted to, communicate or wanted to convey was that Indian writing is going through a transition. Indian writing for children.
Yes, sir.
Earlier, there were many topics which people wouldn't write about.
Yes, sir.
For example, they wouldn't write about riots, about disability,
Yes, sir.
about gay issues,
Yes, sir.
about violence.
Yes, sir.
But now, most writers like me and all, we feel that the child is being exposed to so much of violence,
Yes, sir.
so
Exactly.
much of inequity,
Yes, sir.
and every kind of problem
Yes,
through
sir.
television,
Yes, sir.
through various social media.
Yes, sir.
So why should literature be away from this? We can't be cocooned. We can't keep
Yes,
the
yes.
child cocooned in
Yes,
a
sir.
world of
Yes, sir.
only hope and living happily
Yes,
ever
sir.
after. So we have started covering these issues.
Yes, sir.
And I give the example from 7 books, 2 of my books and 5 other books, where I talked about these issues, how these issues have been dealt with,
Yes, sir.
and how these writers have taken a brave step and the publishers have taken a brave step
Yes, sir.
to come forward and make this literature happen for Indian children.
Very good, sir. So, but there is something, people are getting carried away with the gadgets of this era. How to inculcate a habit of reading?
Yeah, see, this question has often been asked to me. I'll come back to the conference. While I was researching for the conference, for chairing the particular session,
Yes, sir.
one of the speakers, I just Googled her name. I saw her interview. She said a very fascinating thing, very important thing. She said that if the parent or the
Yes, sir.
teacher places the book in the hand of the child, the first thing,
Okay.
the first
Yes, sir.
time, he'll be a reader
Okay, sir.
and he'll continue reading
Okay,
even
sir.
if he
Okay,
gets
sir.
gadgets later.
Okay, sir.
Like the child gets fascinated by the written word, he starts
sir.
reading,
Yes,
then
sir.
he gets a gadget,
Yes,
a cell phone,
Yes,
he
sir.
goes to Amazon Kindle
Yes,
and
sir.
continues reading.
Yes, sir.
But if you keep the gadget first in his hand
Yes, sir.
and later try to give the book,
Yes, sir.
it won't have the same impact. Secondly, I personally believe is the duty of the parent most important, and to a certain extent the teacher. Let's take the parent first. Now the child spends quite a bit of time with the parents. Today, the parents do not have time for the child.
Exactly, sir.
They are so busy with their own, their work, their
sir.
careers, their social media
Yes, sir.
profiles
Exactly.
and all.
Yes, sir.
That
They
for
spend quite less time.
very less time,
with the
and the
children.
time is also not quality
Yes.
time. Like there have been instances where the mother is feeding the child,
Yes, sir.
and her concentration is on the latest WhatsApp message,
Yes, sir.
or the child is not eating.
Yes, sir.
In the good old days, what used to happen, the mother would talk to the child, sing to the child,
Yes, sir.
tell a story. Now what she does is she just switches on the
TV.
this thing on the
Yes,
PC
sir.
or
TV.
the TV,
TV
and
or
says that
phone.
watch the cartoon.
Even she gives the phone.
Yeah, the phone also. Watch the cartoon.
So the child gets occupied and somehow
Occupied.
forgets and starts eating.
Yeah.
Yes,
So that way the bonding is being being reduced.
Yes, sir.
The child is not getting any kind of attraction towards the story.
Yes, sir.
From my own life, let me tell you that every day or rather every night,
Yes, sir.
I would tell stories to my children.
Okay, sir.
So what happened was they started getting interested in that. Then I started
Yes.
giving them books.
Yes.
They started getting interested
To
in
arouse
reading.
curiosity in them
Yeah,
by telling
curiosity and all that.
stories.
So sometimes the story I used to tell after it was published, I used to give them. I would take them to a bookshop. and
Gradually
allow
they'll
them-
have a habit.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
I would allow them to choose the books.
Yes, sir.
My son would choose books of centipede, millipede, and all those kind of things. My wife used to say that, what is this? Why should he read this kind of stuff? I said,
Yes,
no.
sir.
Let him get fascinated with the art of selecting a book.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow or day after tomorrow, he'll pick up books which to us make more sense.
Exactly, sir.
Like fiction or whatever and all.
Exactly.
And that's how both my children are avid readers. They have read, I think, across the spectrum,
Yes, sir.
most of it. So, and what happens when you tell a child a story? You're creating a bond with the child,
Yes, sir.
right? The child is sitting close to you. He's hearing your voice. Sometimes
sir.
sitting on your lap.
Yes, sir.
Can computer, can television, can social media replace this bonding?
Yes, sir. Exactly.
So you're not only getting the child attracted to the written word, you're also getting the child, you're also strengthening the connect between you and the child. I don't know why parents don't do this. And you don't have to be a storyteller like me.
Yes, sir.
You are literate, you pick up any book, the child will be fascinated. I know my son, my wife is not a storyteller, but she had a lovely book in her hand, and my son would read the same story, make her read the same story 20, 30, 40 times before graduating on to her, picking up his own book and reading on his own. So this is one way you can get the children involved. And
Again, coming back to Athens, you chaired 2 sessions there in Athens. What was the outcome, sir? I mean, the response of the people there.
I think the response was extremely good, and quite a few people told me that they liked my sense of humor, they liked my presence of mind. And let me tell you about the paper, because the response was combined, because
Yes,
all the
sir.
3 things happened on 2 days. So when I started talking about my...
On demand, you chaired another session.
Yeah, another session,
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
So-
that means you were so popular there.
I think
Yes,
I was
sir.
popular, or I got an opportunity, it was
Yes,
luck.
sir.
Luck
You
by
spoke
chance.
so well. You
Yeah,
spoke so well.
Possibly,
you
yeah.
brought laurels to our country, sir,
Thank
in
you.
fact.
Thank you. So then what happened was that when I presented my paper, when I was making the presentation, I started by saying that I come from a land where stories are as old as civilization itself.
Yes, sir.
I come from a place where we have the Jagannath consciousness.
Yes, sir.
Then at the end, I talked about my latest book. Now, this book is extremely important to me because it is about a girl child. It is about an organization called Protsahan, which is in Delhi, which helps children girl child, who have been subjected to some kind of either abuse or marginalization. So the founder and I were discussing, and we thought that if I could make some case studies, make some stories
Yes, sir.
on these children. So I was just given 2-3 lines of fact. Around them, I wove an entire story for each child. The issues the children faced were child marriage,
Yes, sir.
sexual exploitation,
Yes, sir.
physical abuse, and disability, and ostracization for some reason or the other. So as I started writing those stories, believe me, it was so traumatic that I had to get out of that syndrome, because it was I could see my child, I could see children around me being subjected to this kind of brutality, and a society of ours which is completely patriarchal, which is completely insensitive, which is completely insular, or to these kind of brutality which is happening.
Yes, sir.
So it hurt me so much. So I think all that has come out in those stories.
Yes, sir.
And finally the book is now ready.
Okay, sir.
I talked about this book,
Yes, sir.
and I said this is dedicated to the girl child, a child who's fighting against the smothered dreams, those broken hopes,
Yes, sir.
and is still willing to fly.
Yes,
So
sir.
I ended with that.
You have become a celebrated
Yeah.
writer. You have been representing India in so many places.
Representing in the sense that yes, I have been invited. Many
Yes,
others
sir.
would have been invited. There might be writers like me, who are much better, more popular, more successful.
Yes, sir.
So I won't say that I'm anywhere close to being a internationally acclaimed writer and all that. All I can say is that I'm trying my best, and my writing is being liked by my readers,
Yes, sir.
mainly children.
Yes, sir.
And for instance, in Sri Lanka, there's a story of mine called Internet in the Jungle.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So there I contrast internet, means technology, versus the human spirit.
Yes,
and I write about the triumph of human spirit over technology.
Yes, sir.
Now the education secretary of Sri Lanka,
Yes, sir.
he picked up this story and he told the writers there and the publishers that we should write such stories and we should publish such stories which are talking about today's happenings. Technological invasion or intrusion is there everywhere.
Yes, sir.
So you contrast that through these kind of examples.
Yes, sir.
Let not technology completely dwarf human elements or human spirit and all. And this story has been included in a textbook which is going to reach around 3 lakh students.
Yes, sir. In our country?
In Sri
In our
Lanka.
country. Okay, in Sri Lanka.
Now that gives me great happiness.
Yes,
This
sir.
is more than any award or any accolade or any
Yes,
international
sir.
conference,
Yes, sir.
The
In true
children-
sense, you
yeah.
can call it a success.
Yeah, in that sense, success. That children of a neighboring country are
Yes,
reading my story and all that.
Yes, sir.
So that's great. And where do I want to go from here? I want to continue writing as long as I live.
Yes, sir.
I want to be in the world of literature, and I want to write for children as much as possible.
Yes, sir.
And tomorrow, when I'm gone, I want people to remember me as someone who made a difference
Yes, sir.
for better
Yes, sir.
through his writing.
Thank you, sir.